My fiancé slapped me hard in front of everyone to save face. That same day, I deleted all his contact information, leaving everyone in disbelief. Ethan and I grew up together. From age 6 to 24, I had followed him like a shadow for a full 18 years. On the day I was leaving the country, he stopped me, his voice filled with unprecedented confusion. Why? I looked straight into his eyes and said word by word, "Yes, because you hit me." Hello everyone, welcome to Tokoda Novel Society. Today, I'll share an interesting new story with you. When that slap landed, my world suddenly fell silent. Ethan's palm came down with a sharp whoosh, a dull thud, and my left cheek jerked to the side. The metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. My eardrums buzzed as if a swarm of bees were fluttering inside my skull. Staggering, I gripped the edge of the desk, my fingers trembling. My left cheek first went numb, then burned as if seared by a branding iron. When I looked up, Ethan's hand still hung mid-air, his knuckles white. My childhood sweetheart, my fiancé, had just publicly slapped me to defend his secretary. For a split second, Ethan seemed to freeze at what he'd done, but anger and impatience quickly masked his expression. "Lily, can you stop making a scene?" Someone in the office let out a low chuckle. While others silently watched the drama unfold, Adrian's chestnut curls gleamed like honey under the light as he stood beside Ethan, his red lips curling into a smirk. "Aishu, don't be so harsh, look how scared she is. Your little sister's about to cry." Ethan listened, his jawline tensing, the fury in his eyes unabated. "Lily, this is the office, not your home. Are you done yet?" His voice was like ice, and scattered snickers rose around the office. I touched the dampness at the corner of my mouth, unsure if it was blood or tears. 18 years. I'd seen all his bad tempers, but I never knew he could hit this hard. Shame, resentment, and humiliation tangled inside me as my nails dug deep into my palms. Ethan was about to say more, but I didn't want to hear it. I turned, grabbed my bag, and rushed through the glass door. Behind me, someone whistled. "Look at her, running like a penguin." Haha, I didn't know where to go, but I couldn't stay at work, much less face those people. The truth was, Ethan had never been patient with me, but this was the first time he'd ever hit me. More than that, it was the first time in my life I'd ever been slapped. When I moved into the new house at 6, Ethan was crouched in the hallway playing with toy cars. Sunlight slanted through the window at the end of the corridor, stretching his shadow so long it just barely touched my toes. We lived next door, our families sharing a small garden. My mom always said Ethan and I were like two saplings growing up facing each other, except his tree had always been taller and straighter than mine. The winter of 2nd grade was especially cold. When Chen Hao from the back seat stuck chewed gum in my ponytail, the classroom erupted in shrill laughter. I cried. The homeroom teacher smoothed it over. "Boys pick on you because you're pretty, he just wants to play. Stop crying." That was even more disgusting than the gum in my hair. I cried the whole way home that day. When Mr. Shin found out, he called his son over from homework and simply said, "Go check out class 2-2 tomorrow." During the morning exercise the next day, Ethan kicked open the back door of our classroom, a scene I remembered for a full 15 years. He lunged at Leo like a little leopard, his fist slamming onto the desk with a dull thud. I listened as he grabbed Leo by the collar, his voice still carrying the childish softness. "Lily is my sister. If you dare bully her again, I'll kill you." When he left, he patted my head reassuringly. From then on, I became Ethan's little shadow that he couldn't shake off. In middle school, after playing soccer, he always wanted to go get ice cream with his teammates. I'd hug my backpack and squat by the field until the sunset stretched our shadows long. He'd grumble as he pulled me up. "Lily, are you a piece of sticky candy?" But he'd still break his strawberry popsicle in half to share with me. He really hated being teased for hanging out with a girl. Once, during a game of alleyway tag, his friends joked that only wives were allowed to join. He got so mad he threw all his marbles down the sewer. But the next day, when I had a fever and didn't go to school, he skipped class, climbed over the wall to my house, and tossed little notes through my window with clumsily written jokes. In high school, I caught Ethan sneaking glances at me countless times. When I chewed on my pencil solving math problems, when I tucked loose hair behind my ear, even when I dozed off at my desk, His gaze would brush over me like the wings of a summer cicada. Fleeting and swift, only for you, Gidge. I suddenly turned my head and caught his eyes before he could look away. How do you solve this problem? His pen clattered onto the desk, and the morning light through the window made his burning ears almost translucent. He fumbled to pick it up, his hair brushing my hand. Just substitute X here. His voice grew softer, dissolving into incoherent mumbles. I rested my chin on my hand and watched him. So the boy who once fought for me without hesitation could also tremble just from my closeness. Outside the window, magnolia petals fell onto her open textbook as both sets of parents proposed an arranged marriage. That night, she dragged me into the fire escape. The motion sensor light flickered on and off. His palm was sweaty, yet his grip on my fingers was painfully tight. Think carefully, his voice strained. You're still young. What if you meet someone better in the future? I stood on tiptoe and covered his lips. Only you, brother, are the best person in the world. He shuddered, then suddenly pressed me against the wall and kissed me. In the darkness, I traced the scar on the back of his neck, a mark left when he shielded me from falling debris in 8th grade. That night, the moonlight filtered through the iron railings, casting mottled shadows over us. After graduating from university, I joined the Shin group and became Ethan's subordinate. Just as we were about to get engaged, Adrian appeared. He was the company's new intern and also Ethan's secretary. On his first day, he brought coffee for every colleague, grinning as he said, "Hey, seniors, go easy on me." When he handed me the coffee, he suddenly paused. "Oh my God." He covered his mouth and laughed. "I can't believe someone still uses a Hello Kitty thermos these days." Seeing my silence, he bit his lip. "Sorry, I just speak my mind. No offense, but seriously, how old are you?" Still so childish. I thought professional women were all elegant and sophisticated with great taste. The entire office's gaze turned toward me like spotlights. My cartoon keyboard figurines, even the Hello Kitty dustproof stickers on my monitor frame. These little things, once affectionately called the Lily Barrier by Ethan, were now being judged under everyone's scrutiny. At that moment, my ears rang as if someone had poured a whole can of sulfuric acid into my skull. Adrian's laughter was like an electric drill, boring an ugly hole through the carefully constructed world I had built. "Ha ha ha, sorry, I'm just blunt like that." He tilted his head, tapping his newly done crystal nails against the My Melody coaster on my desk. "You're not the type who can't take a joke, are you, sis?" My fingers clenched the hem of my skirt until my knuckles turned white. "Enough," Ethan's voice came from behind me. When I turned around, I saw the dangerous curve of her smile. Sunlight poured in through the floor-to-ceiling window behind him, gilding his silhouette. And for a fleeting moment, he resembled the boy who fought for me back in middle school. Adrian pouted in dissatisfaction. "I was just joking with my sister, Director Shin." "Surely you're not going to interfere with that. The office isn't a place for chit-chat, Deputy Secretary General. If you want to chat, I suggest you resign and chat to your heart's content." In the end, Fuyuexuan reluctantly returned to his workstation. 3. I don't know when Ethan and Adrian became close. Suddenly one day, the lunch sent from home by Aunt became enough for 3 people. "There's not a single dish I like today." My voice trembled. Ethan didn't even look up from the report. "We're having light food today. Yuxian said it's good to cleanse the system occasionally." Fuyuexuan sat down beside me with a cup of coffee. "Sorry, sis." His fingers tapped against the coffee cup, producing a dull sound. "I forgot you don't eat light food, but adults really should eat more of it for better health." He deliberately left the sentence unfinished, but the smirk on his lips completed the thought. "You really like calling people sis," I said softly. "But my parents only have one daughter, and if I recall correctly, you're actually a month older than me." The office suddenly fell dead silent. Adrian's expression looked as if he had been slapped, his meticulously drawn eyeliner twitching. Ethan finally put down the documents but frowned at me. "Lulu, that's too much." The boy who once fought others for mocking me as a crybaby was now scolding me for another woman. "Too much, way too much." I let out a cold laugh and turned to leave. Ethan reflexively grabbed me, just like he did back in middle school when I was cornered by bullies in an alley. But this time, his embrace carried the scent of someone else's perfume, and his compromise dripped with impatience. Alright, I'll ask the housekeeper to make Chinese food tomorrow, okay? Xu Yueshuan's face instantly darkened. On the fourth day, the trip to Guangdong began. Xian's targeting of me escalated when I showed up at work with a Lena Bell-themed bag. He immediately covered his mouth in exaggerated shock, his voice rising an octave. Chanel paired with Lena Bell. Lily, are you living in a Disney castle? A few male colleagues around him burst into laughter. At lunch, when I wiped disposable chopsticks with a wet wipe, he nudged the guy next to him and mimicked me in a high-pitched voice. Oh my, the chopsticks must be sterilized first. Is this a runaway Disney princess? Ha ha ha. The other guys promptly joined in with exaggerated expressions. As if it were the funniest thing ever, during the company's annual desk reshuffle, I struggled to carry my monitor, my arms aching. The moment I paused to catch my breath, Adrian slammed the table and stood up, hollering like a street performer. Look, the runaway Disney princess can't move it. Any knights willing to rescue the damsel in distress? He and the other male colleagues doubled over laughing, some even whistling. Ethan would initially frown and mutter, "Alright, don't go too far." But Adrian would always giggle and coo, "Oh come on, it's just a joke. Lulu's always so uptight. I'm just trying to loosen him up a bit." Ethan fell silent for a moment, then surprisingly nodded in agreement. He really is a bit too sensitive. Girls these days are all so delicate. Adrian immediately punched him playfully. "Hey, don't generalize, I'm not like that." Ethan laughed, his eyes filled with admiration, and my heart clenched painfully. Yes, Ethan had always thought I was delicate, overly sensitive, and introverted. In his eyes, liking anime was childish, being neat was obsessive, and being quiet was antisocial. Yet these were things he once indulged in me, until that day, I finally snapped. That spring festival, my parents and I went on vacation to Sonia. The sea breeze was gentle, the sunlight intense, and we had a wonderful time. By the time we returned after the holidays, my skin had tanned to a honeyed shade. In the past, if I got tanned, staying indoors for half a month would restore my fair complexion, so I didn't think much of it. But on the first day back at work, I walked into the office wearing a pink knit top. Adrian's gaze slithered over me like a venomous snake. "Oh my God," he suddenly shrieked, dramatically covering his mouth. "Lily, you dare wear pink when you're this dark?" His laughter was shrill and grating, like nails on a chalkboard. "Ha ha ha ha, this is hilarious. You're nothing like a Disney princess. Disney doesn't have princesses as dark as you." Then he turned to the guys nearby, winking and sneering. "Quick, look at him. He's so ugly now." A few boys burst into laughter, and I froze in place, blood rushing to my head. Meanwhile, Ethan stood beside him, glancing at me with a slight upturn at the corner of his lips. In that moment, I heard something shatter. Maybe it was the 18 years of childhood friendship, or perhaps my affection for him as my fiancé. I grabbed the coffee from the table and splashed it right onto Adrian's face. Adrian let out a scream as her makeup instantly smeared, the coffee streaming down her cheeks like two black tear stains. "What the hell? Are you crazy?" He frantically wiped his face, his mascara smudged into a mess. I sneered, mimicking his usual tone. "Wow, didn't you say you were a man? How come you come to work with a full face of makeup, eyelid tape, false lashes, lipstick? Seems to me you're more of a woman than I am." Several colleagues immediately rushed over to hold me back. Ethan snatched the cup from my hand, his gaze as cold as ice. "Lily, apologize." I stared at him, my eyes burning, but my voice eerily calm. "You laughed when he humiliated me. Now that I've shut him up, you're telling me to apologize." He frowned, scolding me like a misbehaving child. "Stop acting like a brat. If you're wrong, admit it. Acknowledge your mistake." The air froze for a second. The next moment, his palm struck my face with brutal force. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard Adrian's smug sobs, the hushed whispers of colleagues, and the sound of 18 years of childhood bonds shattering under that slap. Slowly, I raised my head and looked at Ethan, the boy who once fought for me. In a whisper, I said, "We're done." The sound of me slamming the door shut startled the motion sensor light in the entryway. Rushing into my room, I frantically rummaged through every drawer and cabinet like a madwoman. The little prince figurine on the top shelf of the bookcase, The pink hoodie he gave me buried deep in the closet. The faded movie ticket stubs in the drawer. Anything bearing Ethan's mark was roughly shoved into a cardboard box. Asterisk clink. Asterisk a glass star jar fell from the bookshelf, shattering into pieces on the floor. It was filled with 365 stars Ethan had stayed up all night folding for my 18th birthday, each one inscribed with "Ethan loves Lily." Staring at the glittering shards, I suddenly burst into laughter. I carried the heavy box outside and dumped it into the trash, startling a few sparrows into flight. By the time I finished, my parents still hadn't returned. I called my mom, my voice eerily calm. "Call off the arranged marriage, Ethan and I are done." When Mom came home, I was pressing an ice pack to my face. She took one look and gasped, her well-maintained hands trembling. "Who hit you?" I buried my head in her shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of laundry detergent, and suddenly sobbed like a child. Ethan's indifference, Shu Yueshwan's mockery. The piercing stares in the office. All the pent-up grievances came flooding out. After hearing the whole story, my usually gentle and elegant mother didn't even care about her poise and stormed out immediately. Ethan's mother answered the door still wearing an apron, holding flowers she was about to arrange. "What's wrong?" "This is what your son did to my daughter over some intern." Mom's voice was icy. "Mrs. Shin, search your conscience. Has our Cheng family ever wronged yours?" "I've never laid a finger on my Lulu her entire life." Even Mrs. Shu's fragmented excuses drifted in. "I'm sure the child didn't mean it." Mom cut her off. "Enough. The engagement between our families is cancelled." That night, my mother held me as we sat by the bay window. The familiar scent of jasmine on her reminded me of when I had a fever as a child. He used to hold me like that all night too. I buried my face in her shoulder, my voice muffled. "Am I being too selfish? Will this affect your business?" Mom gently combed through my hair. "Sweetheart, these aren't things you need to worry about. Just focus on being happy every day. If the sky falls, your dad will be there to hold it up." 6. The next day, Ethan's knocking sounded like a storm pounding against the door. When I opened it, he stood under the dim yellow light of the eaves, his chest heaving violently, still clutching the rain-soaked cardboard box. "Lily," his voice was hoarse. "What madness have you gotten into now?" I silently lifted my face, letting him see the vicious handprint on my left cheek, the bruise spread beneath the skin, 5 purple finger marks like a brand of shame. Ethan's pupils constricted sharply. "How could?" He reached out, his fingertips pausing just before touching my cheek. "I didn't use that much force." I sneered and avoided his touch. There was a time when I would hold up even the smallest scratch for him to see, pouting deliberately and saying, "Only Big Brother can blow on it." Back then, he would grumble about me being a crybaby while carefully applying a band-aid. Yet, it was also him who gave me that slap. Ethan had never seen me so cold before and seemed momentarily stunned. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Lulu, it's just, you bullied a young girl at the company." I was angry in the moment. I cut him off. "Since you're here, I'll tell you now, from today onward, we're over. The alliance marriage between the Cheng and Shin families is cancelled. Ethan, from now on, call me by my full name. If we meet on the street, don't come up to me, and definitely don't knock on my door like you did today." His pupils contracted sharply, as if stung. The night seeped through the gap between us, coating his silhouette in a cold, blue hue. "Get out." I leaned against the doorframe, my voice barely a whisper. "Ethan." Ethan stared at me, bewildered. Was it because I defended Adrian? Or because I slapped you? Emotions I couldn't decipher churned in his eyes. "Lily, when did you become so petty?" "Ethan." I slowly pried his fingers off the doorframe. "It's not about the slap, it's about you choosing to side with the person who bullied me." The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered off, and before darkness swallowed us, the last thing I saw was his red-rimmed eyes, overlapping with the boy who once fought for me, grinning through his injuries and saying it didn't hurt. Ethan stood frozen, the fallen object pointing east. A glass star rolled out, refracting shattered light under the glow. Ethan's expression stiffened, as if he no longer recognized the person before him. He'd seen me cry, laugh, act spoiled, but never like this, cold as ice, my gaze sharp with frost. "I didn't mean it." "Lulu," his Adam's apple bobbed, voice rough. I just lost my temper. I shook my head. I don't want to hear it. The night wind rushed through the hallway window, scattering my final words. Ethan, don't come looking for me again. Ethan suddenly gripped my wrist, his hold so tight it nearly crushed bone. His eyes were terrifyingly red, like a cornered beast. Is it worth it? He ground his teeth. Over one slap, you'd throw away 20 years of friendship. Lily, when did you become so unreasonable? I quietly watched his furious expression and suddenly remembered that year in 9th grade when a male classmate harassed me. Ethan also wore a cold face back then, beating the other boy until he begged for mercy. Now, his anger was directed at me. As for Ethan, I said. As for my answer, Ethan suddenly laughed, a sound colder than the night wind. Fine, very well. He released my hand. If we're breaking up, then we're breaking up. Lily, you're something else. I hope you won't come crying back to me. As he turned to leave, he knocked over a potted plant in the hallway. The sound of the shattering pot triggered the motion sensor light in the garden. Standing in the flickering glow, I watched his figure disappear around the stairwell corner, just like watching the boy who once fought for me vanish completely into the past. Next door, the click of a lock echoed, and Mr. Shin appeared at the doorway. He opened his mouth as if to say something but ultimately just sighed softly. That night, I dreamed of 18-year-old Ethan calling out to me under the starry sky, Lily, we'll be together forever and ever. 7. The next day at work. Gossip in the company's coffee room spread like wildfire. It turned out that Ethan and Adrian were officially dating. As I walked past with my food, I happened to see Adrian on tiptoe adjusting Ethan's tie, the freshly painted cherry-red nail polish on his fingertips glaringly bright in the morning light. Ashu. His voice was sickly sweet. Let's go celebrate at my favorite Japanese restaurant tonight. Ethan's gaze suddenly met mine over his shoulder, and he instinctively tried to step back, only to be pulled closer by Adrian, who turned to flash me a triumphant smile. At my workstation, the group chat exploded with messages. I heard they arrived at Yushien this morning in the CEO Shin's car. He had a hickey on his neck. I saw Director Cheng. Is she okay? I closed the chat window, remembering last month's department dinner when Adrian, holding a glass of sake, declared, I hate being around women the most, they're so noisy. At the time, he was practically draped over Ethan's chairback, adding, it's so much better hanging out with guys. Real men don't get all fragile like those women. The female colleagues exchanged knowing glances as soon as the words left his mouth. The next morning, Adrian posted a pitiful update on social media. Being isolated by the female colleagues again. Asterisk cries asterisk guess honesty really does get you ostracized. The accompanying photo showed the comfort milk tea Ethan had bought him. That day after work, I curled up on the sofa complaining to my parents when my mom, who was arranging flowers, heard me and snipped off a rose thorn. She's seen plenty of people like this. Mom said, sweetheart, don't get too close to him. You'll only end up hurt. Isn't it bad to gossip behind someone's back? Ethan's voice came from the entryway. He was carrying lychees sent by Mr. Shin, but his gaze was as cold as ice. The living room fell abruptly silent, leaving only the sound of scissors snipping flower stems. Looking back now, perhaps from that moment on, his image of me became that of a petty gossip. Meanwhile, Adrian was the pure, unpretentious white moonlight in his heart. I wiped away the coffee stain on my cup. So bitter. Only later did I realize that, at some point, he and Shu Yuxian had already formed a deep friendship. Adrian could make PPTs, and indeed, they were stunning. The animations were smooth, the layouts polished, and even the data visualization, Ethan's biggest headache, was crystal clear. When I used to revise his drafts, I couldn't help nitpicking. This logic is off, or that color scheme is too harsh. Adrian wouldn't do that. He'd just rest his chin on his hand, leaning closer to the screen, his hair faintly brushing against Ethan's arm. Shu, I made this bar chart dynamic for you. The way Ethan's ears turned slightly red reminded me of his reaction when I suddenly kissed his cheek years ago. It was even more obvious during team-building events. Last time, at the pool outing, I'd always avoided such activities, but Adrian's flawless performance drew cheers. Ethan's buddies slung an arm around his shoulders, teasing, Shen Paney is way better than that delicate crybaby. I'd accidentally seen their private messages. Adrian sent an exaggerated crying emoji. Director Cheng was mean to me again today. QAQ. Even Shu Hui chimed in. Ignore him. He's probably on his period again. After a department meeting once, Adrian openly sat on Ethan's lap, twirling his tie around her fingers. We're in a proper relationship, unlike some people who cling desperately to childhood sweethearts. Suddenly, she looked at me. Oh right. You're not jealous, are you? Ethan didn't push her away. He just stared at me with an unfamiliar gaze, as if scrutinizing someone he despised. In that moment, I finally understood. Childhood sweethearts can't compete with fate's sudden intervention. 8 years of companionship lost to 3 months of infatuation. Some people glanced at me furtively, their eyes filled with pity and curiosity. After all, the whole company knew that Director Cheng, who once only smiled for Ethan, had now become a mere backdrop to his new romance. I didn't say a word. Just returned to my desk and buried myself in revising reports. Ethan's cold snort echoed from the meeting room doorway. I never looked up, but I could feel his gaze burning into the top of my head like an unextinguished cigarette. But, later, their public displays of affection grew even more brazen. Adrian slipped a strawberry hair tie onto Ethan's wrist, the pink elastic digging into his sun-kissed skin like some kind of ownership mark. The fire escape occasionally echoed with the sounds of passionate kisses. Once, a cleaning lady caught them, and soon the whole building knew. After work, she would always cling to his arm, and he would indulge her with a smile. How strange. The very scenes that once made my heart tremble now looked like a poorly acted soap opera. Until one day after work, Ethan cornered me in the parking lot. He carried the familiar scent of Adrian's perfume, but his expression was unnervingly complex. Lily. His voice was hoarse. Let's get back together. I sneered and refused outright. Ethan's fingers clamped around my wrist like iron pincers, his palms scorching hot, the force nearly crushing my bones. His breath was ragged, bitter with the smell of coffee as it hit my face. Yet his eyes were like those of a cornered beast on the verge of collapse. Lulu. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his voice suddenly softened. I was wrong. Can we make up? I laughed. Ethan, what did he take me for? A backup he could summon at will. I yanked my hand back. Ethan, listen carefully. The elevator dinged open, and Adrian rushed out, his face deathly pale. He wasn't even wearing makeup, clutching a test report in his hand. When he saw us, his tears instantly overflowed. Ashu, the baby's gone. Ethan's expression froze instantly. He released me and turned to support him, only to be violently pushed away. Are you satisfied now, Director Cheng? Adrian sobbed. Flinging the miscarriage report at my face, the paper cut my cheek like a blade. Now that Ashu and I have lost our baby, you must be thrilled. Ethan's hand gripped my wrist like a branding iron, and I could even feel my pulse throbbing under his palm. His gaze was terrifyingly dark, as if he wanted to devour me whole. Why don't I have it, believe it or not? Lily, his voice was hoarse. When did you become so vicious? I raised my foot and kicked his knee hard, leaving a grey mark from my high heels on his custom-tailored trousers. I told you, I don't have it, and get lost. Don't touch me. Just as Ethan released his grip in pain, a hand with distinct knuckles suddenly intervened. Long fingers casually rested on Ethan's shoulder, yet his expression instantly changed. The man's cool voice carried an undeniable authority. Forcing a lady is hardly gentlemanly behavior. I looked up abruptly, meeting a pair of smiling peach blossom eyes. Miles. He was the legendary senior from the law school, the venomous debater who left opponents speechless in competitions. Senior. I stood frozen. After the university debate finals 3 years ago, we had no further contact. Who'd have thought we'd meet again under such circumstances? Miles curled his lips slightly and suddenly leaned close to my ear. Junior. Play along. His warm breath brushed my earlobe as his hand abruptly tightened. Ethan grunted and released his grip. Without waiting for Ethan to react, I drove off immediately. The last thing I saw in the rearview mirror was Miles blocking Ethan, adjusting his cuff with one hand. Noble yet dangerous. Like a snow leopard guarding its territory. On the second day of the team-building event, I wasn't feeling well. The sunlight was harsh and glaring as I trailed at the back of the group. My back already drenched in cold sweat. It wasn't until black spots began to blur the edges of my vision that I realized something was wrong. The moment my knees hit the gravel path, gasps erupted around me, and the familiar scent of Ethan enveloped me, his arm wrapped tightly around my waist, the force almost enough to crack my ribs. His fingers trembled, but his voice feigned calmness. "You skipped breakfast again, didn't you?" The circle of colleagues suddenly fell silent. Adrian stood 3 steps away, her freshly manicured nails digging deep into a plastic water bottle, the sound of crumpling plastic piercingly loud. "Let me go," I muttered, pushing against his chest, the fabric of his shirt rustling as my heartbeat raced wildly. "I can manage on my own, let go." But Ethan's eyes reddened abruptly. "Do you have to be like this?" he whispered, his voice strained. "Even if you hate me, don't take it out on your own health." Hurried footsteps approached from a distance as the accompanying medical staff pushed through the crowd, clutching a torn packet of glucose powder. A close colleague knelt beside me, pressing it to my lips before glancing up at Ethan with a raised brow. "Mr. Shin, your girlfriend seems to need you more," following his gaze. Everyone finally noticed Adrian crouching on the ground, clutching her stomach. Ethan froze, his grip loosening at last. I took the glucose and downed it in one go. As the liquid slid down my throat, I suddenly remembered a basketball game when I was 16. Ethan had sprinted across half the field just to hand me a strawberry candy during my hypoglycemic episode. In the end, this team-building event concluded with an HR colleague escorting me to my doorstep. Mom saw the bruise on my knee and was so frantic that she insisted on taking me to the hospital for a checkup. Unable to refuse her, I ended up going to the nearest general hospital late in the evening. The waiting area was eerily empty, with only a lone figure sitting in the corner. Junior Miles looked up, his eyes unusually bright under the pale fluorescent lights. His knee was wrapped in thick gauze, with dark red stains seeping through the outermost layer, like crimson plum blossoms blooming in snow. I instinctively frowned, and he followed my gaze downward before suddenly laughing. "No big deal. Got rear-ended today." His tone was so casual, as if he were just mentioning having a cup of coffee. When a nurse wheeled a medicine cart past us, I overheard him mutter under his breath, 8 stitches on the knee, and he says it's nothing. Miles's ears turned red, and he quickly changed the subject. "You look a bit pale. Low blood sugar again." Like a magician, he pulled a fruit candy from his coat pocket, strawberry flavored. "Heard you like these." Too embarrassed to refuse, I nodded and took it. Over the next few days, we kept running into each other at the hospital, him for regular bandage changes, me for blood sugar checkups. Sometimes, if it rained, he'd limp alongside me with an umbrella, all the way to the parking lot. It was strange. This was the same person who'd once cornered opponents into silence during debates. Yet in private, he was unbelievably gentle. That day, the sunlight in the hospital corridor was exceptionally bright. Miles sat on the examination bed in the dressing room. His ears flushed red. "Junior," he said, fingers absently picking at the loose threads of the gauze on his knee, "I think would be a good match. Neither of us is married. Why not give me a chance?" The medical report in my hand slipped to the floor with a soft thud. "No need to answer now," he added, bending to pick it up. Even when the movement tugged at his injury, he didn't so much as wince. "I've got all the patience in the world." A week later, Miles started appearing downstairs at the company. On Monday, he brought dewy pink tulips, saying they reminded him of me when he passed by the flower shop. On Wednesday, he carried a limited edition strawberry cake, claiming it was buy one get one free and a waste not to eat. By Friday, he even treated all my colleagues to milk tea. The most absurd part was when Lisa, who sits next to me, voluntarily gave up her seat and winked at me. "Director Cheng, Mr. Fu says he's here for business discussions." The gossip in the break room grew wilder by the day. During lunch, a close colleague cornered me in the restroom. "I heard Fu Chenju has an 8-pack. True or false?" "I don't know." "Stop lying." She shook my shoulders. "When he carried that bouquet yesterday, his shirt popped open, and even the receptionist saw his Adonis belt." Outside the glass door, Miles was bent over fixing my stuck drawer, his pre-tucked shirt lifting slightly to reveal a glimpse of his toned waistline. "Damn it, This man is definitely doing it on purpose." As the break room gossip reached its peak, she suddenly lowered her voice and leaned in. "Seriously, is Senior Fu's abs as hard as they say?" Her fingers traced the air. "I heard his muscles glisten when he sweats. Come on, tell me, how many abs does he have? Are they nice to touch?" I bit my straw, suddenly flashing back to a summer afternoon when Miles lifted his jersey to wipe off sweat after winning a tennis match. His lean waist glowed like honey under the sun. "8-pack, maybe," I blurted out, but I only saw it by chance. "OMG, Lily, you hit the jackpot," she shrieked, making me scramble to cover her mouth. Just then, a sharp shatter echoed through the office. Ethan stood amid broken glass, blood dripping onto documents like dark red blossoms. Adrian reached out with a tissue, but he violently shoved him away. "Don't touch me." His voice was terrifyingly hoarse. His eyes locked onto me. Sunlight slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting his face ghostly pale. His gaze as if witnessing the collapse of an entire world. Miles appeared behind me at some point, his warm palm gently resting on my shoulder. "Junior, I've booked dinner. Let's eat together after work," he said, his voice neither too loud nor too soft, just enough to be heard throughout the office. Ethan suddenly bent down to pick up shards of glass, cutting his palm without even noticing. Blood dripped down his wristwatch strap onto the beige carpet, forming winding red lines. The entire office fell silent. Ethan's hand continued to bleed, crimson droplets falling from his fingertips onto the floor, making faint tapping sounds. Finally, he walked up to me, his gaze stubbornly locked onto my face. Like a gambler staking his last chip. "Lulu," his voice was hoarse beyond recognition. "I'm hurt. Can you give me a Band-Aid?" I instinctively glanced at my bag. It always had Band-Aids, cartoon-patterned, waterproof, ready for use, a habit since middle school. Because Ethan was always getting scrapes and bruises from playing soccer. "I don't have any," I heard myself say. Ethan's pupils constricted abruptly. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his blood-stained fingers leaving glaring red marks on my sleeve. "You clearly, Mr. Shin." Miles stepped in, blocking my way, waving a freshly opened medical dressing in his hand. "Use this instead. A Band-Aid won't be enough for that bloody mess," he said pointedly, glancing at Ethan's gruesome palm. Ethan staggered back half a step. He looked down at his blooded hand and suddenly laughed, a sound more wretched than crying. "Lily, you're really cruel." Adrian rushed over to pull him away. "Shoo, I have Band-Aids. Let me." "Get off." He shook off Adrian's hand, Ethan's blood still dripping onto the floor, pooling into a small, glaring red puddle. I remember a rainy day in 6th grade. Ethan beat up the boy who pulled my hair until his face was bruised and swollen. On the way home, he swung his bruised wrist and said with a grin, "Lily, you look so ugly when you cry," but he secretly hid his blood-stained uniform sleeve behind his back. Later, that boy teamed up with some troublemakers and, to get revenge, pushed him out of a second-floor window. When I found him, he was sitting in broken glass, clumsily hiding the wounds on his arms. "Stop crying, it doesn't hurt. Just like a cat scratch," he said, but blood kept gushing from between his fingers, and his uniform sleeve was soaked enough to wring out blood. That night, I ran to 3 pharmacies and bought a whole box of cartoon Band-Aids. The next day, when I forced his sleeve open, the tips of his ears turned red as blood. "Lily, don't you have any shame?" But he still let me cover his scarred arms with pink kitten Band-Aids. What happened later? Later, Adrian walked past me in 10-centimeter heels and deliberately knocked my bag to the ground. Hello Kitty Band-Aids spilled everywhere, and she laughed hysterically. "Oh my God, Mr. Shin, is your fiancé in elementary school? How childish." Meanwhile, Ethan stood behind her, a faint smile on his lips. "I really don't have any Band-Aids." I looked into Ethan's eyes. "I stopped wearing them a long time ago." Ethan suddenly trembled violently, his blooded hand clawing uselessly at the air, as if trying to grasp a certain summer evening. Back then, I was on tiptoe, putting a Band-Aid on him, while he looked down at the top of my head and said with a smile, "Lily, you crybaby, when will you ever grow up?" Ethan's hand hung in midair, blood dripping from his fingertips and splattering on the floor. Blooming into tiny red flowers, he suddenly smiled, that fragile smile like cracks on ice. a simple syllable, yet it seemed to drain all the strength from his body. He withdrew his hand, staggering slightly as he turned, leaving a blurred bloody handprint on the glass door. Fu Yuxian hurriedly reached out to steady him, but he gently pushed her away. I watched his figure gradually disappear at the elevator, suddenly reminded of the same silhouette when he was 16, after fighting for me. Back then, the sunset stretched his shadow so long it could envelop me entirely. Now, the light cast his shadow on the wall, thin as a sheet of paper, as if it would shatter with a gust of wind. Fu Chenju silently handed me a wet wipe, and only then did I realize my nails had unknowingly dug deep into my palm. 11. One day after a meeting, Adrian locked the door behind him and cornered me in the break room. Lily, his fingers dug into his palm. Did you do it on purpose? I stirred my coffee leisurely, the milk foam swirling into a small vortex at the rim. I don't understand what you're saying. Adrian suddenly grabbed the sugar jar and hurled it at the wall, glass shards scattering near my feet. Stop pretending. His chest heaved violently. Seeing Aishu, you can't eat or sleep. Are you laughing under your covers? I set the cup down, the ceramic base clicking crisply against the marble countertop. Miss Fu, I met his bloodshot eyes. You've misunderstood two things. First, I said deliberately, we broke up long ago. The arranged marriage between our families is cancelled. We have no connection. Second, I turned on the faucet to rinse the cup, the sound of water drowning out his ragged breaths. I don't want to know about her current state. Please don't trouble me over her again. Shaking off the water droplets, I pushed past her rigid body. As the lock turned, her hysterical scream followed me. You're pleased, aren't you? Not at all. I glanced back at her one last time. Lily, can let go of a man just as easily as I took him. If you want him, he's yours. The fluorescent light in the break room cast a cold glow on Adrian's face, his carefully drawn eyeliner slightly smudged from agitation, making him look like a disheveled tabby cat. Think you're so great. His voice was shrill. You're just banking on the fact that he can't forget you. Adrian, I cut him off. Do you know the difference between humans and animals? He froze. Animals whimper and beg when they're hit. I pushed the chair back and stood up. But humans remember the pain. From the moment he slapped me, we were over. He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his manicured nails digging into my flesh. Stop acting so high and mighty. What would a spoiled rich girl like you know? I pried his fingers off one by one, watching his newly done crystal nails tremble. Oh, I know plenty. For example, I know I sent you to test the waters. I leaned closer to his ear and whispered, and I know you're feeling pretty awful right now. He stiffened. I smiled. Must be awkward, being sent by your boyfriend to probe his ex's feelings. But don't worry, when I say it's over, it's over. Lily doesn't go back for seconds. Tell Ethan this. I meant every word. There's absolutely no chance for us. Shu Yueshuan's face twisted with a mix of emotions, guilt and humiliation at being exposed, but also confusion. After I left, his voice came from behind, carrying a hint of unwillingness. Lily, just because he hit you? Yes, just because he hit me, I answered again, still the same response. At night, I received a call from an unknown number. Without much thought, I answered. The breathing on the other end suddenly became so faint I almost thought the signal had dropped. Lulu, Ethan's voice sounded as if it had been scraped by sandpaper. I'm sorry, I saw your diary. I gripped the phone tightly, my knuckles turning white. Ethan was referring to that pink satin diary he had bought after running halfway across the city for my 10th birthday. Back then, sweat still beaded on his forehead, but he proudly lifted his chin and said, Lily, from now on, all your secrets will go in here. And one day we'll read them together. So I heard myself sneer, are you here to confess now? The sound of rustling paper came through the phone, and Ethan's voice suddenly choked up. Page 217. You said that on the day I proposed, you'd show me the diary on our wedding night. The neon lights outside the window blurred into a haze, and I roughly wiped my eyes, only to find my palm wet. I took a deep breath and asked, do you know what's written on the last page? Silence on the other end. Word by word, I said. Today, I threw the diary away. Goodbye to my 18 years of affection. The sound of paper being frantically shuffled came through the phone, as if Ethan was desperately flipping through the diary. I'm sorry. His voice trembled. Lulu, I watched the snow falling outside the window. Enough. I interrupted softly. Do you know the date written on the last page of the diary? The other end of the line fell silent. It was the day after you slapped me in public. My voice turned cold. Ethan, nothing you say now holds any meaning for me. And don't call me again. Don't look for me anymore. I hung up. On my 24th birthday, my parents threw a birthday party and asked me to invite my friends. Initially, I didn't want to invite Ethan, but remembering how kind Mr. Shun and his wife had been to me when I was little, I sent him an invitation all the same. Miles also shamelessly asked me for an invite to the party that day, as Ethan walked in with Adrian by his side. I was chatting with Mr. Shun. Lulu has grown up, Mr. Shun said, patting my hand, though his gaze drifted toward the door. That scoundrel doesn't deserve you, Uncle. Let's not talk about this, I replied with a smile, pouring him more tea. The tea today is quite good. As the birthday party was winding down successfully, I stepped out alone onto the terrace to rest for a while in the night breeze, which carried the chill of early autumn, when footsteps sounded behind me. Lulu, Ethan spoke in a voice so hoarse it was almost unrecognizable. His suit was crumpled, his tie askew, and he reeked of alcohol. I don't understand why things have turned out like this between us, he said. Suddenly, he grabbed my wrist. We were supposed to get married soon. We were supposed to be walking toward happiness together. The night wind suddenly turned biting. So, you're blaming me? I let out a light laugh. Blaming me for not forgiving you after you slapped me? His pupils constricted sharply, as if stung by my mockery. But why should I forgive you? I continued, a hint of sarcasm curling at my lips. And that day at the bar, I heard everything. Ethan staggered back as if struck. I heard your bet, I said, smoothing my sleeves. Too bad you lost. A bet's a bet, after all. Turning toward the brightly lit hall, I added, don't make me lose respect for you. The bar that day was hazy with smoke, the mingled scents of alcohol and cigarettes stinging my eyes. Just as I reached outside the private room, I heard Ethan's buddies egging him on. Damn, Shun, you're something else. Stringing along the Cheng family's young mistress for so many years, aren't you afraid she might actually ditch you this time? Ethan lounged lazily in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. A few sweet words will do the trick. After all these years, don't I know him inside out? Adrian suddenly leaned in close, her chestnut curls brushing his shoulder. Honestly, a girl like Director Cheng is the easiest to handle, she purred, her red lips curling. Want to bet? Even if you slapped her in public, she'd come crawling back with just a little coaxing, tail wagging and all. Amid the neon lights and raucous laughter, Ethan downed his beer in one go. Why not give it a shot? He wiped the foam from his lips, grinning carelessly. 18 years of sincerity had been reduced to nothing more than a drinking game. In that moment, the bitter liquor seemed to seep into the hollow of my chest. Ethan's face turned ashen. You heard that? He stumbled forward, reaching for my hand. Lulu, I was drunk that night. It was just drunk talk, nothing more. Just drunk talk. I took a step back, the night breeze scattering the embers clinging to my skirt. But the next day, you really did it. I'm not Ethan. I touched my cheek lightly. Don't deny it, it's pathetic, you know. He froze abruptly. I met his gaze and whispered, weren't you the one who always said talking behind someone's back was despicable? Look at yourself now. How are you any better? Ethan's expression crumbled in an instant. The crimson moonlight illuminated Ethan's bleak smile. He opened his mouth but ultimately let his arm drop limply. The night wind lifted the terrace's gauzy curtains, and Ethan's suit shimmered with a bluish hue under the moonlight. Like a statue slowly weathering away, his lips trembled, but no sound emerged. I was wrong. What were you thinking back then? I took a step forward, my high heels shattering his shadow cast on the ground. Did you think I'd swallow my pride and forgive you? Or, like Adrian said, that I'd come wagging my tail like a dog as long as you coaxed me? Ethan jerked his head up, his eyes bloodshot. He reached out to touch me but froze when he saw the undisguised mockery on my face, watching me smirk. He whispered, even now, you don't dare admit it. You've always looked down on me from the bottom of your heart, haven't you? Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. If I hadn't acted that day. No, I cut him off. Ethan, you wavered in this relationship, didn't you? For a moment, you thought marrying me was predictable and dull. You found excitement with Shu Yuxian. He gave you a different kind of thrill. That's perfectly normal. Ethan, you liked me because we grew up together. Because we're a perfect match. But in the end, you don't love me. Or at least, not enough. You think I'm beautiful. But that doesn't stop you from finding me boring, from feeling we're too familiar to spark any excitement. Then Shu Yuxian appeared. He's nothing like me, and you were drawn to him. But Ethan, even without Shu Yuxian, there would have been someone else, another young, beautiful, and equally outstanding woman who's nothing like me. The only thing is, you shouldn't have stepped on me to prove yourself. I sneered. How dare you hit me? Don't you know no one has ever laid a hand on me before? What gives you the right to tell me anything? Ethan, how dare you hit me? Ethan's face turned ashen and lifeless. I had struck a chord with the darkest, most hidden, and most selfish desires in his heart. He knew he had no defense left. Lulu, did I lose you? Ethan, I took one last look at the boy who grew up with me. What you lost wasn't me, it was yourself. As I turned, the glass door of the balcony reflected Ethan's figure kneeling on the ground. The moonlight on the balcony was like a cold blade, pinning Ethan's shadow to the floor. His suit was still impeccably pressed, but he seemed like a hollow shell, as if his soul had been ripped away. Don't you love me anymore? His voice was almost inaudible, as if asking a question whose answer he already knew. I looked at him. The boy I had idolized throughout my youth, now as fragile as a lost child. I never loved you. Ethan's body swayed violently, as if struck by an invisible hammer. What did you say? I liked the boy who would fight for me, I said calmly, the one who secretly slipped me strawberry candies when my blood sugar was low. The night breeze lifted the hem of my dress, and in the distance, I could hear my mother and father laughing. But that Ethan died long ago in that bet at the bar. Ethan's tears fell silently. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. You know what? I took one last look at this familiar stranger. I'm so glad now that we never got married. As I turned towards the warm glow of the lights, I heard a muffled sob behind me, quickly drowned out by the laughter of the banquet. Just like our past, destined to be washed away by time. Later, Shu Yuxian was optimized, laid off, and it was said that Ethan also broke up with her. Ethan seemed like a completely different person. He began appearing in my line of sight every day, like a silent shadow. A warm soy milk and custard bun would always appear on my desk in the morning. During lunch breaks, he would secure the quietest corner of the cafeteria in advance. After work, his footsteps followed me at a distance of 10 meters, persistent as a shadow. What do you want from me? I finally cornered him at the stairwell. The twilight through the glass window outlined his haggard profile with striking clarity. His suit still bore the cufflinks I had given him, a gift I saved 3 months' allowance to buy for his birthday last year. His Adam's apple bobbed. I just want to repay what I owe you. I didn't let him finish. The best compensation you can give me is to stop harassing me. I hadn't told anyone in advance about my decision to resign on my last workday. I only invited a few close colleagues to dinner to say goodbye. Ethan was the last to learn I was leaving to study abroad. I don't know how he found out. On the day of my departure, he chased after my car for a long, long time, outside the window. The once dashing young man ran desperately as the plane trees on either side of the road blurred past. In the rearview mirror, his figure grew smaller and smaller. Ethan's white shirt billowed in the wind like a bird with broken wings. His cries shattered by the engine's roar. My mother glanced at me worriedly, and I shook my head. The running figure in the mirror shrank until it finally disappeared beneath a plane tree at the corner. As the plane took off, I opened the window shade. At 30,000 feet, the sunlight was just right. Later, scraps of news about Ethan drifted into my ears now and then. Friends said he started drinking heavily, causing scenes in bars multiple times. They said he became a rising star in the business world, cold-blooded enough to chill the negotiation table. They also said he changed girlfriends faster than shirts but would always dial an unanswered number late at night. I treated these stories as nothing more than coffee break gossip. Turning back to my thesis without a second thought, one day in London, there was a sun shower. As I rushed into the classroom, I bumped into Miles' startled face. His gentle eyes and brows were framed by casual attire. "When Suaining, long time no see," he said, brushing raindrops from my hair with a smile warmer than the sunset over the Thames. "Can I pursue you this time?" During those 2 years abroad, every birthday, an anonymous package would arrive. Sometimes it contained a bub I'd mentioned once in a social media post, other times a rare art book I'd liked, and once even an identical orange-scented hand cream from the year I was born. I accepted them all but left them untouched, piled in a corner. Cambridge's rainy seasons always felt endless. On graduation day, Miles waited for me outside the library holding an umbrella, his shoulders dusted with cherry blossoms. A matching graduation pin gleamed on his chest as he smiled brighter than the sunlight. "Junior Cheng, would you consider dating your senior?" I burst out laughing and nodded. Later, we worked in the same office building, every day. He'd send something new to my office, sometimes hot cocoa, sometimes handwritten notes, and once even 999 roses. One weekend, Miles finally discovered those unopened gifts in the storage room. Kneeling before the boxes, he studied them for a long moment before looking up. "Should we throw them away?" After a pause, I nodded. He stood and hugged me, his scent faintly cedarwood. "Never mind, that'd be wasteful. How about donating them to an orphanage, one day?" Miles suddenly gasped at his phone screen. "Look, in the last photo, the donated children beamed, clutching toys, while that once meticulously wrapped gift box now rested in a child's hands, covered in tiny fingerprints, outside. The year's first snowflake settled on the windowsill as Fu Chunjo's kiss lightly brushed the top of my head. "Happy birthday, Lily, Happy birthday to me." The end. That concludes the first story. I hope you enjoyed it. The next tales will be even more captivating. Let's continue together. Lucas jogged over to catch up, stopping right in front of me before suddenly vomiting a large pool of blood. His body simply couldn't handle such exertion, and I disgustedly stepped back to avoid getting splattered. My reaction infuriated him. "You dare to me," he spat. "Usually, you're the most worried when I vomit blood. Why aren't you concerned now?" That was because I thought he was my savior, my husband. That's why I cared, but he wasn't the one who saved me. Instead, he ruined my family. Why should I bother with him? "You've got it wrong, young Master Lu. We don't even know each other." Before I could finish speaking today, Lucas angrily cut me off. "Stop pretending, Amelia. The moment you admitted to my mother that your lucky was fake, I knew you'd also been reborn." Seeing no point in keeping up the act, I raised my head. "So what?" Lucas sneered. "This lifetime. Don't even think about using that lucky nonsense or claiming I have late-stage stomach cancer to deceive me, and that whole marrying me out of gratitude act. Ridiculous. I never saved you." His smug, self-righteous expression was irritating. But I couldn't be bothered to argue with a dying man. I just wanted to make things clear. "Don't worry, young Master Lu, I've mistaken you for someone else. My real savior doesn't even like you, and this time, I definitely won't marry you." Hearing this, Lucas's expression darkened, but I paid him no mind. An ambulance suddenly rushed past us. If I remembered correctly, that was from the nearby hospital, and inside was my actual savior. In my past life, he died on my wedding day. Good people deserve good endings. This time, I wouldn't let him meet such a fate again. My face paled as I tried to rush to the hospital. But Lucas actually called over several bodyguards and had me taken to another one of his residences, where I was locked up. "I already said I won't marry you this time," I snapped. "Young Master Lu, what's the meaning of this?" I frowned deeply, but Lucas only smirked mockingly. "You loved me so much before. You even took care of me meticulously while heavily pregnant, just to marry me. You even conspired with your mother to claim I had late-stage stomach cancer and needed your... Did you really think I'd be stupid enough to believe you'd just give up now?" I suppressed the urge to curse. "It wasn't just my mother who said you had late-stage stomach cancer, and whether you're suffering or not, you know best yourself." I originally meant to say that neither my mom nor I had lied to her, but after I finished speaking, Lucas became even angrier. "Shut up. Susan told me everything before she committed suicide in her past life. How you bribed the experts who examined me. And how my coughing up blood was because of the medicine your mom deliberately prescribed. No wonder she went crazy and was so ruthless to my entire family back then. But Susan and I had no grudges between us. I didn't even know why he would frame us like this. I was furious. My mom and I had never done any of those things. I tried to argue. Susan is waiting for me for our date. I don't have time to waste with you. Our wedding is in 5 days. Don't even think about causing trouble here. I'll let you go after the wedding. After saying that, Lucas left, brimming with sweetness. I tried to rush out but was pinned to the ground by bodyguards, forced to watch helplessly as the door slammed shut in front of me. Fuming, I cursed Lucas's ancestors 18 generations back and immediately called the police. His face darkened as he held Susan and said, "Let her out, nothing serious happened." The police mediated and left it at that. After the police left, Lucas gritted his teeth and said, "You actually dared to call the police. You've got some nerve." I glared at him coldly. Should I just stay locked up for 5 days and starve to death? He blurted out, "It's not like it hasn't happened before. You won't die." And he wasn't wrong. In my past life, when I angered him, he locked me up for 5 days. Back then, I endured it by eating toilet paper and drinking water from flower vases, not wanting to cause trouble for him with the company about to go public. But now, after he'd already killed me once and I knew who my real savior was, I would never do something so foolish again. I just wanted to stay far away from him. If you want to marry Miss Jong, go ahead, it has nothing to do with me. There's no need to lock me up. But Lucas didn't believe me. Don't try to deceive me. You went to such lengths to escape. Isn't it just to ruin my wedding with Susan? Keep dreaming. Convinced I was there to cause trouble, he contacted the hospital director, who fired both me and my mom under the pretext of falsifying medical records. He also drove my dad's small trading company to the brink of bankruptcy. 3000. Amelia, playing hard to get is fine, but overdoing it just becomes annoying. Here are the keys to the Riverside Villa. You can stay there. On my wedding night, I'll spend the first half with Susan and come to you in the latter half. Lucas pried open my hand, shoved a set of keys into it, and even scratched my palm lightly. I laughed in anger. "You want me to be your mistress?" Lucas's eyes darkened. "The only one I love is Susan. Letting you be my mistress is already giving you face. Don't push your luck." With that, he got into his car and drove off, frowning. I immediately threw the keys away. That bastard Lucas. I couldn't wait to see him die miserably on his wedding day, and he didn't make me wait long. On the wedding day, the 2 wedding processions crossed paths. The moment Lucas saw me, his face darkened. "Amelia, I already allowed you to be my mistress. How dare you come here to ruin my wedding with Susan? You're shameless." On such a joyous day, running into such an unlucky sight made me frown. "Are you blind? I'm sitting in the Fu family's wedding car. No one's here to ruin your wedding." Lucas roared, "Don't think you can fool me like this. Nearby, there's really a leukemia patient. Hello, even the so-called auspicious bride." "Nonsense is a lie. You can't possibly marry a dead man. You just want to swap places with Susan." Fut. Before he could finish his tirade, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Lucas clearly hadn't expected this and stared at me in disbelief. But I just curled my lips into a cold smile, watching him stagger and collapse. He was about to die. This was always his destined end. At the sight of this, the accompanying doctors rushed over in a panic to treat Lucas, but as soon as they approached, Susan, still in her wedding dress, pushed them aside. "All of you, step back. Aishwaror is perfectly fine. Don't you feel guilty lying to him all the time?" She handed Lucas painkillers. Lucas poured out half the bottle and shoved them into his mouth, his eyes still fixed on me. "Amelia, don't think that just because you and your mother drugged me at the last minute to make me look seriously ill, I'll call off the wedding and marry you." He wiped the blood from his lips, his eyes full of mockery. What auspicious bride nonsense. I never believed it. If getting someone pregnant could save a life, Susan could do it too. She's already carrying my child. I seriously doubted there was anything but water in his brain. The person I'm marrying has always been Fu Jin. Can you stop making up so much nonsense, Lucas? Lucas was angered by my tone. Just as he was about to speak, a man in a silver-gray suit hurried over and stood in front of me. "Darling." He vomited so much blood. Did it scare you? It's fine. I smiled at him. I'm a doctor. Scenes like this mean nothing to me. Hearing this, my father sighed in relief, but Lucas looked as if he'd seen a ghost. How could this be? Shouldn't he have died long ago at this point? Why is he still alive and well? No sooner had he spoken than he vomited several mouthfuls of blood, collapsing to the ground like a dying dog, unable to get up. Someone like him deserves to die in agony. Frowning, I tugged at the man's sleeve. Young master, we should go. We don't want to miss the auspicious hour. All right, he replied softly, his eyes fixed on me. Before leading me to the car, Lucas still wanted to stop me, but he couldn't even crawl. His suit was stained with blood, his appearance utterly wretched, his expression filled with terror. It hurts so much. Shan, why aren't the painkillers working? Why am I suffering like this? Susan's face had already turned deathly pale. Why, you probably didn't take enough. Just finish the rest of this bottle, and you'll be fine. But after taking the pills, Lucas only vomited more blood, his condition worsening. He was on the verge of breaking down. Why isn't it working? Susan's eyes were full of panic. This shouldn't be happening. In your past life, your health was fine later on. You shouldn't have been sick at all. It couldn't have just been cured by chance. Hearing this, Lucas's face turned ashen. What do you mean? Shouldn't have been sick? You're saying Amelia and her daughter fabricated my medical records and drugged me, all based on your speculation. Susan, you venomous woman, you're going to be the death of me. He wanted to lash out, but he was too weak to move, but he had no strength left. Lucas was rushed to the hospital, but the gastric cancer specialist just shook his head. Stage 4 stomach cancer. If he'd taken his meds and cooperated with treatment, he might have lasted a while longer. But he stopped everything, overindulged, and now this. He's only got days left. I do not want to die. What do you mean? Only a few days left. What kind of crap specialist is this? Lucas wanted to yell, but he didn't even have the strength. His voice was barely a whisper. He hated Susan for being such a troublemaker, but at this moment, he didn't have time to care about him. Lucas mustered the last of his energy and grabbed his mother's hand. Go find Mengyun. Get him to do the cleansing for me. He's the only one who can save me. Mrs. Lu was sobbing uncontrollably, but she was already married to my father. What do we do now? Lucas insisted. That doesn't matter. He loves me so much. There's no way he'll just watch me die. When Mrs. Lu wheeled Lucas into the hotel, my father and I had just exchanged rings. She didn't care about the occasion at all and shouted, Yunshi, my good daughter-in-law, don't worry about your husband. Just come save Shoror. Please, he's in critical condition. Only you can help him with the cleansing. The whole room was stunned. I clenched my clothes and left the hall. Mrs. Lu kept thanking me for saving Lucas, but when my family was destroyed because of her, she never lifted a finger to stop it, only helped him clean up the mess. In this life, she's called me a liar, watched her son target my whole family and never said a word. Now she needed me. And suddenly she was acting all affectionate, still as fake as ever. My new husband frowned. Mrs. Lu, please be careful with your words. Yunshi is my wife now. Guests were whispering. Many had their phones out recording video. The scene was a mess. The Lu and Fu families moved to a private room to talk. Lucas looked pale, but his attitude was as arrogant as ever. Fu Jin, do you really think Yunshi likes you? She only married you to spite me. I felt sick to my stomach. You're delusional. If you're so sick, go see a doctor, and don't come here acting crazy. Lucas's eyes were full of resignation. I get it. You're jealous of Susan. You're mad because I hurt you. Right, I finally see his true colors. The bride can be you instead. Does that make you happy? Talking to a dog would be easier than talking to him. I'm tired of this. My husband's expression darkened. But Lucas cut him off. If the Fu family won't cooperate, I'll end this partnership right now. The Fu family was at a crucial transition stage, and a broken partnership would cost them dearly. My father quietly reassured me, don't worry, you're my wife now. I will never let the Fu family push you out. She wanted to reject Lucas and his mother, but I stopped her. Looking at them, I said, it's true, I have a good luck cleansing constitution, but I'm already pregnant with my husband's child. Before I could finish, Lucas jumped in. That's fine, I don't mind, just get rid of it and have my child instead. For the cleansing, so his life mattered, but not my child's. Still as selfish as ever, my husband was even angrier. Give it up, even if the families cancel the partnership, I will never let Yunchi get an abortion. She's only just started to recover, she's still weak. He was breathing heavily, his emotions out of control. I told him to sit down and stop talking. But that just made Lucas even more confident. See, Amelia won't even let you speak. He loves me so much. He'd do anything for me. Forget one abortion. He'd do 10 if I asked. Mrs. Lou was beaming. Good daughter-in-law. Just come home with us. Susan health can't wait. He tried to grab me, but I shook him off. I said calmly, it's too late for me to marry Lucas now. The good luck cleansing only works once, and I already used it for my husband. But if you take my blood and the heart's blood of a woman pregnant with Lucas's child, it might save him. Lucas's eyes lit up, wild and greedy. I pricked my finger and gave him 2 drops of blood, only twice a month, for 5 months. Any more and it'll backfire. And during this time, total abstinence, Lucas looked disappointed, but he still drank my blood immediately. Don't worry, Amelia, once I recover, I'll come back to marry you and never let your love go to waste. He left in a hurry, off to get Susan Hart's blood. But what he did not know was that the Hart's blood would not work on him at all. I said that only to get back at him. As for my blood, it might keep him alive for now, but 5 months from now, he will not recover. He will only suffer 1,000 times more than the pain of late-stage stomach cancer. That is the price for hurting me and my entire family. My father and I continued with the wedding. After it was over, he hesitated several times before finally asking, "You married me to repay a debt, didn't you?" I nodded. It was true, and I saw no need to deny it, Father said earnestly. But when I saved someone back then, I never thought of demanding repayment. If you have someone you like, you can tell me anytime. I'm willing to divorce. He quickly added, of course, your share of the property won't be shortchanged in the divorce. Truthfully, I wasn't familiar with him at all. We'd never even met. Otherwise, in my past life, I wouldn't have mistaken someone else for my savior. But even if Father had no feelings for me, it didn't stop him from treating me well, because he was simply a good person. This was exactly how I imagined my savior should be. I smiled and touched my belly. But we already have a baby. I don't have someone I like. If the young master doesn't either, would you mind continuing this marriage with me? Father nodded solemnly. As long as you don't mind, I'm willing. At night, he worried I might feel uncomfortable and even suggested sleeping separately, but I refused. We're a real couple. Why sleep apart? A good relationship is better for the baby too. After washing up, I lay on the bed while Father lay beside me, carefully stroking my belly. We only did it once. Is there really a baby inside? He asked curiously. I nodded. I'm lucky. My body type guarantees conception the first time. But it's still too early to test. We'll know in a while. My stomach was still flat, not yet showing any signs of a bump, but he was already utterly fascinated, murmuring and discussing baby names with me until we both fell asleep. The next morning, I was awakened by my phone ringing. On the other end, Susan's voice was shrill and furious. Amelia, you've already ruined my wedding. What more do you want? Why did you make a shoe take my heart's blood? Are you trying to kill me? Father had already gotten up for his morning workout and left a note, so I didn't need to hold back. You guessed right. Susan broke down and said, I have no grudge against you. Why are you doing this to me? I sneered. I have no conflict with you either. Yet didn't you tell Lucas that my mother and I were scheming against him? He plotted against me and harmed me, so it's only natural for me to retaliate. But even after being exposed by me, Susan still acted self-righteous, saying, You have no right to blame me for scheming against you. Clearly, I and Ashura were meant to be together, but in your past life, you insisted on claiming to have some lucky charm constitution and forced your way into marrying him, making me a secret lover. This is what you owe me. So that's how he saw it. No wonder he harbored such malice toward me. But I needed to make it clear to him. It was Lucas who, fearing death, hid the fact that he had a girlfriend. It was Madame Lou who wanted to save her son and lied, saying Lucas was my savior. The ones who wronged you were them, not me. I explained it thoroughly, But Susan didn't dare to resent them and instead vented all his anger on me. It was you who lied about having a Lucky Charm constitution, which led them to do this, so it's still your fault, you bitch. Susan, I really dislike your mouth. I hope on the day Lucas kills you, you'll still find it hard to blame him. After saying this, I hung up and blocked the number. Additionally, I hired someone to monitor Lucas and gather evidence of him abusing and imprisoning Susan. 5 months passed quickly. After drinking my blood for the 10th time, Lucas collapsed on the spot and was rushed to the hospital. In a panic, he called me, demanding I go there immediately. 7. I didn't have to go, but I wanted to witness his suffering firsthand, worried about safety. I brought along 4 burly bodyguards from nearby and headed to the hospital. In the ward, Lucas was writhing in agony on the floor, unable to stop, while Madame Lou's makeup was streaked with tears. The moment she saw me, she rushed over and grabbed my wrist. Amelia, why is my son in so much pain after drinking your blood this time? The doctors said his stomach cancer is cured, so why is he suffering more than before? I shook her off, because this is the retribution he deserves. Madame Lou's face twisted in fury. You bitch, what did you do to my son? She raised her hand to strike me, but my father caught her wrist, bullying my wife right in front of me. Madame Lou, do you think I'm invisible? I slapped her across the face without hesitation, calling me a bitch. The biggest bitch here is you. Lucas Deng's lips were bloodless, yet he still had the strength to yell at me. Amelia, how dare you hit my mother? I slapped him again in retaliation. This time, it was him. You vile woman, aren't you afraid of provoking me? If I refuse to marry you, you won't even get to be my mistress. Lucas's face turned red with rage. I walked over and stomped my foot hard on his face. You impersonated my savior, hid the fact that you had a girlfriend, and tried to marry me. Just because of your beloved's baseless suspicions, you ruined my family. You're such trash. What makes you think I'd ever love you? I leaned down slightly. Oh, I forgot to tell you. After drinking my blood, you'll find yourself unable to live or die. Lucas made me and my family suffer so much for no reason. Why would you think I'd forgive and save him? Only then did Lucas believe that I never loved him. His eyes bulged with fury as he tried to get up and attack me, but as soon as he rose, my father kicked him back to the ground. Lucas struggled to get up, unable to accept this reality. Fu Jin, tell Amelia to save me, or the Liu family will cancel our partnership with the Fu family. Fu Jin wrapped his arm around my waist and said coldly, 5 months have passed, surely you don't think I'd still be waiting around for your threats? Lucas, the Fu family has long found new partners. The Liu family can no longer use this to blackmail us. Hearing this, Lucas refused to believe it and tried to lash out in madness. I immediately called the police, reporting him for abusing and imprisoning Susan. When the authorities arrived, they found him locked in the basement of the villa, emaciated to skin and bones, his stomach sliced open, barely clinging to life. Susan's eyes were filled with tears, brimming with despair. He promised to cherish me forever, but just because I ruined his fate-changing ritual, he did this to me. He even tore our child from me. How could I have been so foolish to fall for him? I hate him so much. Susan's final words were full of hatred. He died in agony. I watched, feeling a pang of sorrow but no regret. He knew full well how cruel and violent Lucas was, yet he still fed him lies, claiming my family had deceived him. The tragedy that befell my family in the past was inextricably linked to him. Now, he's gotten exactly what he deserved. Du Shore watched Susan die without feeling sad, only venting his anger at me. Amelia, you've made my life worse than death. Every breath feels like being stabbed by thousands of needles. Isn't that enough? Why did you have to call the police on me? I walked closer to him and whispered, do you think being jailed is the worst that could happen to you? Wrong, wrong, wrong. You drank my blood. Not only will your life be worse than death, but you'll also lose your fertility. And he personally killed his only bloodline in this world. Lucas glanced at Susan, his eyes bloodshot, then charged at me. You bitch, you venomous woman, you've cut off the Liu family's lineage. I'll kill you. But before he could touch me, he was kicked down again by someone nearby. I walked over and sighed softly. I only said I needed Heart's blood. I never told you to dig out her uterus, did I? What you did has nothing to do with me. I just wanted Susan to suffer a little. Who knew Lucas would be just as cruel to his beloved as he was to me? The police stepped forward, handcuffed Lucas, and escorted him out. He struggled and shouted, "I want to report Amelia. She's the one who said taking Susan Hart's blood could cure me. She's the one who urged me to kill." I shrugged. "Young Master Lu, don't slander people so casually. Do you have any proof?" Of course. Lucas had no proof. People like him never cared about the law, even if they broke it. They'd only think about covering their tracks. Lucas, filled with resentment, glared at me with murderous intent as he struggled in the officer's grip. "Amelia, just you wait. Once I'm out, I'll make sure you're dead." I smiled sweetly. "I hope you can hold on until your release day. Don't give in to the urge to kill yourself before then." Lucas was taken away. The Lu family hired the best lawyers, and after the trial, he was only sentenced to 5 years for involuntary manslaughter. Yet even so, he couldn't accept it. He fainted on the spot out of rage, and Madame Lu sobbed until she could barely breathe. With swollen eyes, he blocked me and my father outside the courtroom. "Young Master Fu, our families have been friends for decades. Are you really going to ruin it all over a woman?" My father remained expressionless. "Since we've met here, I'll relay the elder's message. The Fu family wants nothing to do with the Lu family's heartless and ungrateful kind." His words left Madame Lu no dignity. Her face flushed with anger. She snapped, "Don't forget, Amelia was a lucky bride we found first. If we hadn't given her to you, you'd already be dead." Fu Jinsi retorted coldly, "My wife is a person, not an object. She chose me. You didn't give her to me." Madame Lu was trembling all over. "Fine, fine. Since your wealthy family is determined to protect this wretch, then prepare to face the Lu family's retaliation, from start to finish." He didn't even acknowledge me, just like when we first met. He never treated me as a person, nor did I cross his mind. I wasn't angry either, simply calling out to his retreating figure, "Walk carefully, madam. At your age, a fall could leave you half paralyzed." Madame Lu turned back to glare at me hatefully before getting into her car and driving off. Little did he know, even if he didn't seek revenge, I would. A filthy, colossal family like the Lus was long overdue for a downfall. But before executing my revenge, I went for a prenatal checkup accompanied by my father. My belly was already quite large by then. When he supported me, he was meticulous and cautious, as if he were escorting the Empress Dowager herself. If I hadn't insisted that pregnant women need to stay active, he would have probably carried me everywhere. At full term, I effortlessly gave birth to a pair of twins, a boy and a girl. My father held me and cried uncontrollably, "No more, never again. You were in there for so long. I was so scared something might happen to you." The usually aloof CEO was now a sobbing mess, much to the amusement of my in-laws. I found it funny too, though I couldn't help but feel a pang of tenderness for him. "Stop crying," I said. "The entire labor only took half an hour. It was very smooth." My father wiped his tears and whispered, "Once you've recovered from postpartum confinement, I'm getting a vasectomy. Even half an hour is too much for me to bear." I gave a soft hum in response. For what felt like the 100th time, I felt grateful that what began as mere repayment of a kindness had led me to such a wonderful husband. My in-laws, along with the grandparents nearby, were overjoyed, showering the twins and me with gifts. On the day of the twins' 100-day celebration, 2 more pieces of good news arrived. The Lu group had officially entered bankruptcy proceedings, and Madame Lu, unable to bear the crushing blow, had jumped to her death. After seeing off the guests, I went with my father to visit Lu in detention. "It's only been a few months," I remarked. He had grown so thin that his cheeks were sunken, his appearance almost skeletal. The exposed skin on his body was covered in scars. I hadn't visited him before, but I'd kept tabs on his situation. It was said that every time the pain became unbearable, he'd beg to be taken to the hospital. Yet every examination came back normal, after being tormented over a dozen times. The guards concluded he was faking it and stopped humoring him. Desperate to escape the agony but still clinging to life for revenge, he resorted to self-harm as a way to endure the excruciating pain. Lucas saw me still making threats. "Amelia, you dare to show your face in front of me? Just wait. I'll be out soon to kill you." I chuckled lightly. Did your mother tell you she'd find a way to reduce your sentence, to hold on a little longer? But guess what? The Liu family went bankrupt today. And he committed suicide. There's no sentence reduction for you. You'll just have to keep rotting in here. Lucas suddenly stood up. Impossible. You're lying. I raised an eyebrow and played the news. His face turned deathly pale, and he started screaming and jumping around on the spot, only to be immediately dragged away by the guards. He's alive now, but the pain he endures every day is worse than the agony of late-stage stomach cancer. With no hope left, he simply couldn't hold on. The night I returned from the detention center, I heard he'd sharpened a toothbrush and stabbed it into his throat, killing himself. I asked if people around me thought I was too cruel. He hurt you, so your revenge was justified. If he hurt you and you just laughed it off, that would be the real problem. My father's eyes held only pride and approval, not a trace of disdain or fear. I smiled and continued walking with him, followed by 5 aunts pushing 2 children and carrying bags. The events of my past life had truly become distant memories, and from now on, I would only get better and better. That's the end of today's story. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. We will keep updating with more exciting stories and look forward to meeting you again next time.